Special shout out to all my patrons.
How's it going?
How's it going?
So, when by trans youth, are you talking about children?
Trans youth, so like anybody like probably like ages 9 and up.
Wow. What makes that a good idea? Like, you talking about surgeries, right? You talking about surgeries and hormones and these kind of
No,
things, right?
that'd be gender reassignment. I'm just saying they need gender affirming care. So that gender affirming care can be anything.
Like, what is that?
And it can be anything that affirms their gender. So like they
Like,
could
what does that mean?
socially, well, so they could socially transition. They could go on like puberty blockers, anything like that.
What is social transition? Like, what does that look like?
So social transitioning would look like, you know, dressing the way you choose, like per the gender that you identify with, changing your name to a name that more resembles your gender identity, things like that. Changing your pronouns, things like that.
So, do you think that this has potential for abuse?
No, I don't see how it could.
No. So, have you seen the videos? And this is several women, who pretty much dress their kids up, or they force their kids to say certain things, and the kid, some of these videos, the kid's clearly not really comfortable with it, but since they already began, maybe 2 years ago, he said that he felt a girl, then they're questioning things. The parent is now pushing this. You don't think that that's a problem?
Yeah, so I think parents can abuse anything, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. There are parents who abuse school, but that doesn't mean that going to school is inherently abusive, right?
Sure, but you don't think it's abusive to say, okay, well, if your son comes to you and says, I feel your 9-year-old son, 9-year-old, you would agree that they have a vivid imagination. Their brains are not fully developed, right?
I would say their brains are not fully developed, but that doesn't mean they don't know who they are or are not in the process of understanding who they are.
Are there some kids who dress up like, are there 9, 10, 11-year-olds who think they're Batman and RoboCop and stuff?
Sure, what does that have to do with this?
Right. So you said they know who they are, but
correct. Like playing pretend is different than knowing who you are, though.
Right. If the kid believes he's Batman, that you think that that's a good indicator he knows who he
is.
You think
they're playing pretend? Did you never play pretend?
Well, sure, I did. But do you believe that a child knows who they are at 9, 10 years old? What makes you believe
they're in the process of learning who they are, and I believe that children at the ages of like 9 and 10 can ask the relevant questions about themselves, their gender identity, who they are as a person. And I believe that when we look at gender affirming care, it should always be coupled with doctors, therapists, and parents. So it's not that the kid just decides one day, hey, mom and dad, look at me, I'm a girl now. No, it would be coupled with many other things.
Right, but we look at the statistics when it comes to, for example, school youth, right? Before the gender identity stuff really popped off, there weren't a lot of people who claimed this, and then suddenly 20% of high schoolers are claiming they're trans.
It's not a suddenly thing. It's accepted more now, so people are more willing to come out.
So let me get this straight. So you're saying that it blows up in the media, so now people are more willing to come out.
Yeah, it's accepted more, so people are more willing to come out.
How is that how do we know they're more willing to come out as opposed to just
because we can look at the amount of people that transition in their like 40s and 30s. So these are people who were too afraid to transition when they were young. They were too afraid to understand who they were because it was not accepted. So now that it's more accepted, they're more willing to come out in their adult age. I'd rather people be able to come out when they're younger. They don't need to wait until they're 30 or 40 to come out.
Right, but if your argument was more in the teenager older than 9 to, what did you say? 7? What did you say their age ranges were?
And I think anybody over like the ages of 9 can start to understand their gender. I mean, you can start to understand it more, right? Like sooner than that.
Right. I don't even think the people who propagate gender identity understand it in the first place.
Based on what?
Based on when you scrutinize the position, it doesn't like hold up to any logical scrutiny.
Scrutinize it how?
So, for example, the criteria, right? Like the idea of gender identity is based on one's own self-image, right?
It's based on a lot of different things.
Right. Okay. What's the criteria then for these genders?
Do you mean the criteria to be in a gender? What are you talking about by
No,
criteria?
no, so if you believe in like gender is sex and gender are different, right?
I believe they
And you
have
believe
some link, but I believe that gender is just a way to categorize different people into groups, specifically of man, woman, boy, and girl.
right. So you for as far as state of being, 'cause, I mean, obviously we both know that there's gendered languages and clothing and these kind of things. But your argument essentially is that sex and like there's still sex and gender are separate. They're linked, but they're separate, right? Like
Yeah,
your being.
gender is a wholly human concept. It doesn't exist in nature. Sex is
Right.
a
So check this out. So if you use that standard, right? What is the difference in criteria using gender only between man and woman?
what do you mean? It's different per society?
Between for man and no, I'm asking you, regardless. Okay, let's use our society.
Sure.
What are the criteria as far as difference between man and woman?
Sure, I would argue
American,
that
by the
in
way.
our society, men are people that fit a more masculine traditional role, so or role or behaviors or traits. So people who are typically, by the way, is the important word here, taller, more muscular, have shorter hair, typically that's typically viewed as a man, and women in our society are typically viewed as smaller. They're typically viewed with longer hair. They're typically viewed as people that fit into more feminine roles, typically.
Right, but you just described. What it sounds like to me, you didn't describe man or woman or criteria. It sounds like you just described masculinity and femininity.
Yeah, I believe that men and women are just categories of are just how
So
ways that we categorize people that fit into masculine and feminine
you could
roles.
be a feminine man. You could be a feminine man and a masculine woman. So I don't really understand your position. To
It's
be
okay.
honest
I
with
mean,
you.
if you don't understand it, that's fine. I think plenty of
I
people
mean, it's not
do.
making. I'm just saying it doesn't make any sense
It
because you're
makes
saying I
it
asked you for
makes
the criteria.
absolute sense.
It doesn't. I asked you for the
What is
criteria,
what
right? And
is
then
what is gender? What is
wait,
gender?
hold on, wait. Before you ask me a question, let's not move the point, right? I
Let's
asked
just
you
make
for
it a
the
point.
criteria, and then you brought up masculinity and femininity, and you said
Correct.
typically, you said
Typically,
typically,
yes.
typically,
Typically, yes.
these a man would be someone who has more masculine features, and typically a woman would be someone who has more feminine features,
Typically,
right?
yes.
But then there's no criteria that's subjective, isn't it?
Yeah, I think gender is subjective.
No, I'm saying the masculine and feminine. So if it's subjective, what? How do you have a criteria? That's my position. Right?
You can have a subjective
A subjective
criteria.
criteria.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not based in truth, though, is it? Then
What truth are you talking about?
it's not based in so truth, right? Based on facts and evidences, right?
What is gender?
Gender.
Hmm.
Gender is it depends in what context. What is gender? In what context?
Give me the definition of gender.
It depends on the context. So I would say gender is the social and the cultural differences between men and women. So and that's my personal definition. Like off the top of my head, I don't have a dictionary in front of me. So I would say, for example, feminine language and masculine language, or feminine clothing and masculine clothing. In America, you may have some clothing that's well, for women and men, there's different culture and so on and so forth. Or for example, some men may typically eat X food in this culture, women typically eat this food in this culture. Men listen to this kind of music, or the blue and the pink be different in whatever culture. Those things, right? Social differences. But as far as men and women go, and they're concerned, as far as like the actual logical idea of them, I don't think that you liking pink would make you a girl. I don't think that you liking blue would make you a boy. I don't think this criteria is subjective to the individual and yet true at the same time. Because it doesn't make
All right, I'm
any
looking for
sense.
a tape recorder. There must be one somewhere. Because I was just like repeated. Is man and women gender categories or sex categories?
Men and women are considered gender categories under the paradigm that you're operating under.
What are they under your paradigm?
Under my paradigm, a man, right, is a male, and a woman is a female. So
Why,
like an
why
adult
are
female, and a
why are
man,
women and man linked to male and female?
because when we use them colloquially and when we use them in practice, it makes sense. So you wouldn't say, for example, right? Every culture has had different um, times in which you are a man or a woman, right? Like in some cultures, You're not a man until you get your first kill or until you hit a certain age. You're not a woman until you get your menses or until you do, But there's never a question on whether or not, this person with a ball with balls and penis is a man, right? Or this person with a vagina and breast is a woman. That's usually never the case unless you're talking about intersex. But using that is just too rare. Using extremes to prove an argument in a position. So using rationality and logic, I'm simply saying that your position, right, is based on someone's own
Wait,
self
but you haven't
description.
you haven't you
Therefore,
haven't
it's not true.
provided a substantiation to why
Sure, it is.
woman and no, hold on, let me finish. You haven't provided a substantiation to why woman and man is linked to male and female, except for because they are. All you said is because they are, because that's how our language works. That's not a substantiation.
They're synonymous with each other,
That's why are they synonymous with each
right?
other?
Because that's how. I mean, what do you mean? That's just how it is. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
I'm
not an
not understanding your
answer.
position.
That's not an answer.
That is
That's not an answer.
right. I mean,
Because they
it's
are,
like
because
asking.
it
It's like
is.
it's kind of like asking me. It's kind of like asking me like, why is the sun hot? Like, I mean,
No, it's not. You can substantiate
yeah,
the linkage
same thing.
here, or you cannot substantiate the linkage. If this is the case,
Right,
why
but you
aren't there
are.
women lions? Why aren't there women dogs? Where's the
You mean
men
you
horses?
mean a lion? Hey, hold on, wait. There's a lioness, right?
The lioness and women aren't the same words.
Hold on, stop. Women apply to humans, right?
Yep.
So then women is not a sex
Wait,
thing because
stop,
sex
stop,
is
stop.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Am I wrong?
Yeah. So women is associated with just humans. So if you look at the
Right.
definition of women, it'll say adult human female, right? So what the definition is describing to you is the association of one's gendered perception of themselves in relationship to their somatic sex.
Right. Which that means it's
So it's an
philosophical at best.
association. No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
no, it's
philosophical.
no. This is a description of anatomical sciences.
Bro,
No, I'm saying so
I don't think you know what words are.
criteria is right.
I
Criteria
can
have a
give you,
standard,
I can give
right,
you
for
the
certain
criteria.
things.
I can give you
But
the
if your
criteria.
criteria is like subjective, then it's not a real criteria.
No, it's subjective, and I can
Yeah,
describe
it's
that.
not. So it's philosophical or
I,
religious or something like
I'm,
that. It's not facts.
I'm going to describe what the objective criteria are because I've
Go
been
ahead.
in the sciences. Okay.
Wait, really quick before you do, Aaron.
Yeah.
Can we just recognize that arcs isn't facts, but his just because it is, that's facts. Okay.
I know. It's
Go
like
ahead, Aaron.
saying, yeah, essentially what he's describing is the sun is hot because it's hot and therefore it's a fact, when instead we can actually do better than that and actually explain why it's hot. So nuclear fission, for example, is the reason why it's hot. That's like sort of the quote standard, like we look at another property that defines the actual entity. So when we're talking about the property of a human being and gender, the property that we're standardizing or we're comparing to or quote associating to is a person's somatic sex. So for example, when we say woman or man, we're associating it with the dimorphism of somatic sex. Like there's generally like these two flags that we're looking at, or these anchor points, whether someone's male or female. And then someone has the gendered experience or the presentation of man or woman in association with that. We call that congruence, or in other words, cisgendered. So a man who's a male is cisgendered. A woman who's a female is cisgendered. However, if a man is a female, that's called incongruence. And we call that trans in a more colloquial sense, for example. So those are the standards with which we're going by, is we're looking at two aspects of human physiology and human psychology. And so gender is the psychosocial byproduct of a brain developing a sense of self-image. So a human being, all of us, like we don't
Right, 'cause it's gross
identify
stuff, but
with
it
our
tastes good when it's put all
chromosomes, we
together.
identify
Okay,
with
good.
the
Onions,
association of our
garlic.
somatic
Onions, garlic,
sex, 'cause
celery,
we can't see
balsamic
chromosomes
vinegar.
with our
Tomato
brain.
That's a
paste.
big word for Elmo.
And so it's about the association with our bodies and then our brain having an image that we build with it and how we experience it in the world. That's the standard with which we develop gender.
Yeah, that doesn't actually, to be honest with you, that still is very loose, right? To be honest with you,
It's
if
a
I'm
lot
completely
more
honest with you.
concrete than because we
That
said
still
so.
sounds like
How is it loose?
No.
Because you have
But
to
the thing
define
is,
by
hold on.
what's,
But the thing is,
because so you
my
have to define
right,
what's loose and what's coherent. So that's fine. You say it's
right.
loose,
I'm
but
saying it's
we're
not
not, we're
coherent,
not.
nor it doesn't make sense.
So the definition of man or woman
So but my
is an
question,
association. I'm not. Hold on. The association is built around a person's experience, like the way the brain experiences living in a body. So being a man or a woman is an adult male or female. It's the experience of oneself within the body. That's what gender is. Gender is
I
the
completely disagree
experience.
with
The
that.
gender
That makes
is
no
the
sense.
experience of the human body. And so when we think about the variety or the
Right.
spectrum
So
of
you're gonna have
gender,
the
when we have the spectrum of gender, that is simply the spectrum of experiences of a person's experience with their own body. Some people are agendered. In other words, they don't have a perceived experience about their body that just simply is. They don't have an experience of it. Some people are non-binary. In other words, they have a bit of both because their brain has certain componentry like the hypothalamus and the amygdala that give off certain sort of like I would say ambivalence towards like sexual dimorphism and chromosome or not chromosomes, hormones. And so some people are non-binary, like their experience of self is neither one or the other. It's a mosaic of both.
So you're saying that not, for example, a non-binary person, you're saying that they both have a man and they have neither a man's experience nor a woman's experience, right?
They have a bit of both, or it
Okay, a
overlaps.
bit of both. So how do they know that? How do they know that?
So one of the things that we're not able to do in research right now is really make a concrete assessment of a person's qualia. And so what people are telling us is that's how they experience themselves. And we can't
Right,
put that
you
under a
can't measure that.
microscope. We can
Yeah,
we
you can't
can
measure
measure
that.
we can measure it, but it's qualitative, not quantitative.
Right, but I'm saying, okay, so if someone has this X experience, right, then they're having that to themselves. There's no criteria or something to hold it up
We we
against.
just we
That's
just established that there is.
wait. Okay, so criteria, give me gender criteria, right, for man
So
and woman.
gender criteria is the psychosocial experience of oneself. In other words, it is the mixture between the brain and the environment around that person. That's what the criteria is. It's a spectrum. There's no one specific standard. There are many different kinds of anchor points. So for most human beings, their psychosocial experience of self is very much a direct association to their somatic sex. So in other words,
That's
a
not
man,
concrete.
a man, a man, or rather, I should say a male has a comprehensive understanding of their sense of self as a man
Yeah, I'm hungry.
because of that association. We call that cisgendered. That's what just simply the reporting of most human beings are cisgendered.
Okay, I hear you, but to be honest with you,
Most of us are man or woman.
right,
And that's the
right, so you,
most of us, okay? So
but yeah, you didn't
even
answer my,
those of us that have that experience, there's nothing concrete we can relate it to outside of our own sense of self, but
right, that's my point.
we can communicate that qualitatively. In other words, it is the shared experiences. So those of us who are individually cisgendered men or cisgendered women, we are aware of that experience because of our shared experience with other cisgendered men or women. For example, you won't have the same experience as someone who's a transgendered woman or man because you don't have that association with your own
I would
body.
actually argue that I wouldn't have the same exact experience as any other man, to be honest with you. But that wouldn't change
So
my
we have
actual
a
being.
shared
But
experience
besides
is
that,
not
I asked you
a shared
a
experience
specific
is not the same
question, and
as
you didn't actually answer what I asked you.
a
My
shared
question was
experience
very
is not
specific.
a shared experience is not the same as having the exact same experience. It means
Okay,
that
so you're
there's
just
some
gonna
shared
dodge.
association,
You're just gonna dodge and
but there's
pretend like I
no.
didn't ask you that question earlier,
Well, I already told
right?
you that there's just simply
Yeah.
it's qualitative data, not
Right, but you didn't
quantitative.
answer my right. But the fact that you can't answer it shows the weakness in your argument.
No,
You
I
can't
answered it.
answer on your side. I
All right,
literally
look,
asked you
I think
why
that
man and woman is
I,
connected to male and female, and you said because it just is. That's a circular answer.
Which is funny because that's
What?
just simply, that is actually the answer for all people's gender. That just simply is.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not understanding. I asked for very strict criteria, and this
And what
You
we-
can't
I already
provide
gave you
criteria
criteria.
on
It
your
seems
end.
like,
So what
hold
are you
on,
talking
wait.
about?
The fact,
Jesus
look,
Christ,
if
bro.
you
I
if
gave
you
you
believe it's
criteria.
philosophical, look, if you believe it's philosophical, you know what I mean. Like that's you. I can't.
It's
That's
not
not science. You know
philosophical.
what I'm saying? It's what it sounds like to me.
Science also isn't. It is because it is. That's also not science.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
science. It's science because
Fucking
it's
A,
qualitative.
dude.
It's science because
Alright,
it's qualitative.
I feel like there's no logic here in this.
There's
in this
none from
position
you
that-
That's
either.
a
you know
you.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's kind of
Right,
a,
right.
that's
It's a you problem, dog.
No, it's a you problem. I think
No,
everyone
it's
is
not.
aware
It's a
who-
you problem, my
Okay.
G.
Now, do you know what
well-
qualitative analyses are?
No, I don't.
Then I would suggest you not come back to this conversation and go read about qualitative analyses.
Yeah, that
that
wouldn't
is-
help.
that is
That
science.
doesn't help. That doesn't help the philosophical argument you just gave.
It doesn't
To be honest with you.
because
None of
mine's
it
not
helps yours
philosophical.
either, my
It was
dude.
100%. When the moment you said it's subjective to this to X experience,
Dude,
you
answer
kind of went into
answer
the
answer the
religious,
question.
philosophical
Answer the
realm,
question.
to be honest with
Why
you.
is man and hold on, Aaron? Answer the question. Why is man and female? Why does that have to be inherently linked to male and female? Why does man and
Why is
woman?
man and
Sorry.
woman
Why does man and
inherently
woman
linked-
inherently linked to male and female?
Man
can
and
answer
woman
that.
is linked to male and female because they're synonymous.
Why are they synonymous?
They're not synonymous.
They are synonymous. I looked in the dictionary.
Imagine getting mad that we're not giving concrete answers and your concrete answer is it's synonymous. Imagine, please.
My position's already been established. Your position is more new. You know, this more.
I don't care what is new. That's just an appeal to tradition. It's just an appeal
No.
to
This
tradition.
has been
You're
around.
going, this
This
is the
is-
way it's always been, so this is correct, and this is what has to be right. Get
No,
out
no,
of here.
because
science-
I have logic and reason supporting my position. You
the
have
science
philosophy.
of
Because
this-
it is not logic and
Okay.
reason, bro.
Look, I
Are
don't
you
want to die on
joking?
this hill. I don't want to die on this hill. You know
What?
what I'm saying? Y'all, you gentlemen have a good one.
Come
It's been around
on,
for 30
bro.
years. Like the science has been around for 30 years, so it's not like some philosophical thing.
I'm sorry, Aaron. That just drove me batty. How can you go because it is and then claim, well, I debate off of logic and reasoning, but you know, it's just because it
I
is.
mean,